The second type of pleasure that people are after is concerned with the concept of identity. Now, the term identity is a bit of a loaded word. It's a concept noun that implies a lot of things, and it can mean different things to different people. But from my perspective right now, it really boils down to who you are and how you see yourself. I really think your identity kind of arises from your reflections on your past activities, behaviors, things you've done, places you've been, roles you've played, and your interpretation of the meaning of those things, especially about what they mean in the context of the world. So all this reflection and interpretation and understanding and meaning and relating to things, and so much thought about it, it kind of builds up into this way that you see yourself that we label as a thing called your identity. I'm actually reading an interesting book right now. It's called Being and Nothingness. It's by a French philosopher called Jean-Paul Sartre. And the kind of tagline of his whole work is this phrase that goes, "Existence precedes essence." And that means that you're born into the world without an essence, without a nature. But as you go into the world and live your life and exist, go through your existence, that kind of leaves behind, or you could say it kind of creates this essence, this nature of who you are. Realize that concept of your essence, your nature. It's not predetermined. Your essence in the future, who you are in the future, is determined by your existence between now and then. And I think the same goes for your identity. Your identity now is not necessarily your identity in the future. Rather, your identity in the future is kind of like a summation of your identity now, plus the existence and your interpretation of all the things that happen between now and your future. And it seems like we human beings, we have the identity we have now, and then we have an ideal identity that we see ourselves being in the future, that we'd really like to be, that we want to become. And this gives rise to what I call the identity gap. It's the gap between how you see yourself now, who you think you are now, your identity now, and the identity that you'd like to have in the future, the way you'd like to see yourself in the future, who you'd like to be in the future. It's you versus ideal you. And I want to suggest to you that you can always sell to someone by showing them how to bridge that gap. Bridging the gap between the identity now and the future identity that your customer would like to have is very, very valuable. There's a concept in NLP, or neuro-linguistic programming, called logical levels. It was invented by Robert Dilts. And there are 6 logical levels. Right at the bottom, there's your environment. And then above that, there's your behavior. Above that, there is your capabilities and skills. Above that, there is your beliefs and values. And then above that is your identity, and only above that is your purpose. So the identity is a very high logical level. The idea behind the kind of hierarchy of logical levels of change is that as you go up higher in the hierarchy, there is more leverage to change things below. So for example, if you wanted to change your environment, you could change your environment directly, or you could change your behavior, and this would have higher leverage on changing your environment. Furthermore, if you wanted to change your behavior and your environment, you could go up a logical level higher and increase your capabilities and your skills. And this would have higher leverage on behavior and environment changes. To get leverage on changing your capabilities and skills, you can change your beliefs and your values. And at the 5th logical level of change, identity has leverage on all of the things below that. So if you think about it, your customers, they probably want, in a way, a different environment. They want to behave differently. They want different capabilities and skills. They're even unsatisfied with their beliefs and their values. And at the top of it all, what they really want that just encompasses all of that is just a different identity. They want to be almost a different person. Now, I'm not implying that people hate themselves and they just want to be someone else, but I am implying that everyone wants to just be a better version of themselves to some degree. So I'll say it again. You can always sell to someone by showing them how to bridge the gap between their current identity and their ideal identity that they want to attain in the future. Let me give you some examples of identity level changes that people desire. Someone who sees themselves as uncool, unpopular, unimportant may want to become a charismatic star that everybody likes. Someone with a negative outlook on life, someone who's worried, someone who's a bit depressed, they might want to become a happy person. Someone who's positive with a really great outlook on life. Someone who doesn't make a lot of money, they have a boring job, but they don't have a fun life. They might have this identity inside them that's just screaming to get out. They might see themselves as being more congruent in an identity, in a role of traveling the world and being a multi-millionaire. Now with these deep level ideal identities, they're not just little desires. They're not just like, oh, wouldn't that be nice? That'd be fun, wouldn't it? No, they're much more than that. It's almost like that identity is already inside them and just waiting to get its chance to live in the world. The person feels like they'd be more true to themselves, more real, if they came into touch with that true identity, if they brought that into existence. Let me give you a really concrete example. Maybe even imagine this is you. Imagine you're sitting at a table with 5 or 6 other people, and there's a lot of conversation happening. Not just chit-chat conversation, but opinionated chit-chat. People are telling other people about how they feel about a certain subject, voicing their opinions. Everyone seems really passionate and certain about their opinion. And they all look happy. They're all very engaged as they assert their opinions and talk back and forth and enjoy the moment with each other. But not you. You're just listening. You have an opinion. You hear what other people say and you think, oh, no, I disagree with that. I actually think this. But that's just in your head. You really feel like you could add some value to this conversation as well. But something's stopping you. You're so hesitant to voice your opinion. You're afraid. You're afraid of what people will think. You're afraid that your thoughts won't come out right, that people won't understand what you mean, that they'll laugh at you. You deeply worry about what they think. You lack confidence. And you think to yourself, I wish I wasn't such a coward. I wish I had the confidence and the courage to do what I want and speak my mind and not worry about what people think of me. Okay, that kind of change is an identity level change. It's really deep. Now, do you think that you could sell to that person by saying to them, do you just feel like you wish you weren't such a coward and you wish you could become more confident and have the ability to speak your mind and be a confident, courageous person? Well, I can show you how. Again, you can always sell to someone by showing them how to bridge the gap between their current identity, how they see themselves now, and how they want to be, the person they want to be. So what I'm going to get you to do right now is think about your customer's identity gap. I'm going to get you to write down 10 phrases that describe their identity now. And each of those phrases, I want you to write down their counterpart identity. Now, when you write down these phrases about their identity, I want you to be thinking in terms of roles that they play in the world. For example, the role of a coward, the role of a poor person, the role of someone with a boring job, the role of a depressed person. Now, these ones I've listed here, they're very, very general. And it's unlikely that those particular roles relate to your particular customer. You may even have to speak to some of your customers. You may have to ask them, how do you see yourself? Who do you think you are? Who do you want to be? How do you want to see yourself? Now, it's going to take some willpower to kind of let go of your own perspective here. If you're watching this video, there's a chance that there's an identity gap for you where you'd like to be a more financially successful person. You'd just like to see yourself as more financially successful. Well, what if I told you that although that's a common identity gap, not everyone has it, and your customers don't necessarily have it as well? They may well do, but they don't necessarily have it. So just be careful not to project your own identity gaps onto your customers. You really have to let go of your own experience of the world and your own perspective. Get inside your customer's head. Really get inside their head. Think about what their thoughts are. Imagine waking up as them. Imagine eating breakfast as them. Imagine them as they read the news. Imagine them as they talk to their friends and their family. Imagine them eating dinner. Imagine them going through the motions of doing their grooming, like brushing their teeth and showering and getting themselves ready for bed. Then imagine them going to sleep and thinking about, reflecting on the day. How do you feel? Who is this person? Who are they really? Who do they see themselves as currently? And as they do these things, what are their thoughts about who they'd like to be? This really requires a huge amount of empathy and compassion. So go ahead right now, write down 10 phrases that describe your customer's current identity, how they see themselves now, and then write down 10 counter phrases that describe kind of the more evolved, or perhaps even opposite, if you like, identity that your customers are after. And after you've done this, you're going to be able to speak to your customers in a way that you never thought possible. And remember, for bonus points, ask your customers personally what the answers to these questions are. Okay, write down 10 phrases describing their current identity, 10 counter phrases describing their ideal identity, and I'll see you in the next section.